sad words of tongue and pen. The saddest are these, it might have been. That is a famous quote by John Greenleaf Whittier, taken from his 1856 poem Maud Muller. I've always loved this line due to how relatable it is, standing the test of time, because what John was referencing here is regret of chances not taken and choices not made. This is a sentiment most commonly referenced to in the modern day as FOMO, or fear of missing out, trying to avoid the regret before it happens. FOMO is massively applicable to gaming and even drives the industry at times. May that be getting the latest console release before scalpers snuffle up stock, charging you double in the process. A limited time release product that once gone is gone, or even getting into that latest game release, lest you not be the coolest guy on social media. While I'm not immune to the reach of FOMO, I suffer from the opposite and far more sadistic infliction. I like to call it, if missed, no f***s are given, or I'm a fag. Wait, is that really what I settled on? Yes, I'm a fag, I'm owning it. Basically, if I miss something either hyped or something that becomes a cultural phenomenon, I become a spiteful ex and go into I didn't even want it anyway mode. So why am I telling you this? Well, I'm trying to make excuses to why I haven't played one of the biggest game series without losing all gaming cred. Did it work? Yes, I have never played a second of the Hitman games. My PC in the early 2000s lacked a GPU, making the first Hitman game out of my reach. This is where I'm a fag kicked in. Fine, if I can't play the first game, then I will cut my nose off to spite my face and ignore any later releases in the series. In fact, I have never played an IO interactive game full stop. However, I have seen gameplay over the years. I actually enjoy watching good players break World of Assassination. By the way, what is with the banana fetish? Anyway, after seeing the footage from the new Bond game, First Light, a game I'm very much looking forward to, I couldn't help but see the influence taken from Hitman, and that got me thinking, should I play the Hitman games in preparation? This then led me to the thought, wait, should I play all the IO interactive games? Which then led me to the bright idea, let's make a video about it. So that's what we're doing. We're gonna play the IO back catalogue and have a look at the history of the Danish game developer. I thought this could be an interesting way to do it. Start the series around the time First Light releases, then wrap it up after all is said and done. Are you going to learn anything new here? Probably not. These games have been well covered on YouTube, but what I can promise you is what I say here will be from my own perspective, playing these games for the first time without watching nor reading anyone else's coverage. That way, the people who love these games get that fix of someone new getting into that thing they enjoy, like that annoying mate that's really into Linux or CrossFit. And for all those that haven't played these games, maybe I will convince you to do so, or vicariously share the experience. And if worst comes to worst, everyone can just come together and call me a useless cunt, because that's what I'm all about, bringing people together. We're going to take a look at the good, the random, and the downright bizarre. So with all that being said, let's start with the context and take a look into the history of this Danish developer, shall we? The story of IO Interactive's origin is quite interesting and not the normal route for the creation of a game studio. Well, not these days anyway, because IO came from the underground. IO Interactive's origin actually starts with a small game studio called Rito Moto, founded in 1997, a studio made up of old school programmers from the popular demo scene of the 90s. Rito Moto never actually released or even worked on any games at this time though. It was more of a meeting place for key members Jesper Vorshort Jorgensen, Rasmus Goldberg Kager, Martin Monk Pollis, Carsten Lehmann Højvedberg and Jacob Andersen, in addition to Janus Hotier and David Goldbrandsen. In a smart move for financing and distribution, the group entered a partnership with Danish film studio Nordisk Film. Nordisk Film was Scandinavia's biggest film and TV distributor at the time, and the exclusive distributor of PlayStation products, making the move a no-brainer for a startup game developer. The deal was for a 50-50 split between the key members and Nordisk, with the name of the new company becoming IO Interactive. This is a move that will see the end of Rito Moto for the time being, with all efforts going into creating the first game, which nicely brings us to the title that started it all. As I said, I'd never played this nor any other Hitman game before making this video, so what choice did I have but to start at the beginning? Now I very much doubt anyone watching this video will not be aware of the Hitman games, but what you might not be aware of is the Juggernaut series that fronts the developer today was created more from luck than artistic vision. Originally, The vision of the former members of Rito Moto was to make a game they had dubbed Rex Dominus, a fantasy MMO RPG, a bold choice that never got past the concept stage. It was from the direction of Nordisk Film that the team cut their teeth on a simple run-and-gun shooter first, basically being told they needed to walk before they could run, which is sort of ironic considering with Codename 47, the studio skipped crawling, walking and running all together, instead choosing to go straight to flying. The run-and-gun style game was planned to be a homage to the work of legendary Hong Kong-based film director John Woo. It was quite a bold move at the time, because while John Woo has heavily influenced many games such as Max Payne, the Fear series, and John's own official game Stranglehold, a sequel to his film Hard Boiled, this wasn't something that had really been done at the time. Okay, maybe Rise of the Triad was the first, but my point is, in the late 90s, bullet time and gun fu wasn't the cool premise it became post The Matrix. Development started in 1998, but before any work on the actual game could be made, IO worked on a custom engine that would support the style of game they wanted to make. Most importantly, the death animations and ragdoll physics. Again, this was a bold move in a time when the industry-leading games were being made on cutting-edge engines such as Unreal, id Tech 2, and the Quake engine, inspiring Gold Source. This is a move that would pay off in a big way though, as British-based Eidos Interactive found their work so impressive they decided they wanted in on the ground floor and offered to officially publish whatever madness these underground Danes were cooking up. IO Interactive took 2 years to finish their inaugural effort, releasing in November of 2000. The game eventually took the route of a stealth assassin hybrid. So, with the scene set, enough jibber jabber, and let's get into the meat and potatoes of Hitman Codename 47. The elephant in the room is, how did I play this over a quarter of a century old game? Well, this was a mini migraine in itself. As I briefly mentioned, when letting you all know how self-sabotaging I can be, this game was only ever released for the PC. Like, exclusively, forever. It's actually the only IO interactive game that did this, and in the age of your Naughty Dogs and your Bethesdas, it's actually quite refreshing that a dev is more interested in making new stuff rather than repeatedly re-releasing old tired games. And yes, as of writing this, I have played Hitman 3 Contracts. A little foreshadowing for you there, and I will talk about it when it's Contracts time, as it's a very interesting way to revisit a previous title. All this does come at the detriment of playing old PC games on modern hardware, but that's where the GOG project comes in. For all the problems some have with good old games, the truth is, Codename 47 runs right out of the box. It's not perfect, the draw distance is terrible, clearly using an early form of LOD, or level of detail rendering, and the max resolution is 1600 by 1200, but it just works. Of course though, anyone that knows their resolutions will instantly know that 1600 by 1200 means the dreaded 4:3 aspect ratio. Now I have never minded 4:3, it takes me back to a simpler time of CRTs, but I know that's not the consensus. And as long as it doesn't involve any image stretching, I'm always happy to comply. And the best thing is about PC gaming, there is always a dedicated group of programmers and hackers willing to spend their time to bring these old games up to modern standards. Honestly, you can mess around with this to your liking, using DG Voodoo too. I did it first, but then I tried Borderlands Enhancement Pack, and it just does all the hard work for you. It configures DG Voodoo, enabling widescreen, fixing the FOV, locking the frame rate to 60 FPS, which is very important, as games at this time lock the physics to the frame rate, and as an added extra, even fix the controls, because f*** this noise for controls. This also means the game can be played in modern resolutions, and while 4K is tempting, the HUD and text just becomes too small, even with a 2x multiplier, so I stuck to 1080p as the difference was negligible. As for the render distance, well, there isn't much that can be done. Even running the game on the 5090 makes little difference, as the render distance is locked to the game engine, so whether using the 5090 or using a 20-year-old 3DFX Voodoo 3, there is little improvement to be made. Just for completion, and a nice little story arc, I actually bought the exact PC I had in the late 90s, threw in an ATI Radeon 9250, bought an original copy of the game, and finally put my gaming demons to rest. And while not the footage I'll use in this video, because, you know, 4x3, it nicely brought me full circle. I'll leave it to that for the software setup, but I'll leave the link to the gaming PC wiki in the description, and a GOG link to the game. Not affiliated, but GOG is a project worth supporting in my humble opinion.
Wake up, my friend. It's the dawn of a new day, and you have things to do. I will guide and teach you, and you will learn by doing. Always remember, I am not only your guide and mentor. Think of me as the person you trust the most.
Yep, that's the opening of the game. Straight into the immersion. No info dump, no loadout, no training level. Wait, is this a... Yep, we've got a training level, kids. But what an interesting way to incorporate it into the game. In the late 90s and early 2000s, training levels came in a few different flavours as developers were still trying to find their feet with 3D games. There are three main categories of training in my opinion. The first being the invisible. An example of this would be Super Mario 64, giving you the area outside of Peach's castle to roam as you wish, learn the long jump, the back jump, and God willing, the side jump. Then it's on to Bob-omb Battlefield, a very easy start to get a feel for the game. This is the best implementation, but rarely works outside of quite simple gameplay, although it can when just teaching the very basics. The second is the optional, as seen in Lara's mansion when playing Tomb Raider. Basically, the game's way of saying, you don't have to do this, but if you skip it, don't blame us when you get mauled by a bear. And if you don't go to Lara's house, who's going to shut Winston in the freezer where he belongs? And yes, Half-Life was the master of this, but really, what is the point of making everything look inferior by comparing it to Half-Life? The third and final training mission is the unskippable. This isn't my favourite way of learning the gameplay, but Hitman does it in a better way than some. I'm looking at you, driver. These can be mixed and matched, of course. It's not a linear list, but the biggest problem I have with this training section is it really that necessary? I'll give you some examples. Like here, we're taught how to jump a gap between handrails. Now in my gameplay, the only time I ever had to use this was here, and it was pretty much automated. Another example is the gun training. For me, gun training should be one of those f**k around and find out situations. And the only part of this I found even slightly useful was how to use the garrote. But again, I would have picked this up on my own, and I think that's where the point of this level is, not to teach you how to shoot a gun, sneak up on an enemy, or climb a ladder, but to subtly inform you there is more than one way to skin a cat. I know, we're supposed to be talking about the premise here, but that's my point with the first mission. The narrative introduction and training level are inseparable. The voice over the tannoy is that of Dr. Wolfgang Ortmeyer. His job here is to baby bird you through this section. Your initial thought will be, damn, do you really need to tell me to change clothes? Is this much hand-holding really necessary? And the answer is yes, because not only is Dr. Ortmeyer the main antagonist in the game, making this a solid way to establish the power position he holds, but he's making the player follow every little command while also depicting Agent 47 as a blank slate to be controlled and moulded in his creator's image. Dr. Ortmeyer isn't helping Agent 47 with mundane tasks. Instead, the Doctor is controlling his every move, as this is truly a game about manipulation and control. Once the training, I'm doing air quotes by the way, once the training is over, those newly learnt skills are put to use by Agent 47, escaping the compound with a shot of Dr. Ortmeyer watching everything that's unfolding. And in case it's not obvious, we get a nice little lean back in the chair to tell us this is all part of the plan. In the next scene we see 47, it's a year later. He is in Hong Kong and he has become a killer for hire, working for the ICA or the International Contract Agency, and that is all the setup we're going to get, and this is entirely intentional. Agent 47 is a mysterious character, a blank slate for the player to project themselves upon, and a man of few words. He wears a stylish Italian suit, donning his iconic red tie, and of course, that mysterious barcode tattooed upon the back of his head. Even at this point in the series, when we knew little to nothing about this stone-cold, chrome dome killer, the aura was there to be seen, and it really is no surprise that 47 went on to become an icon in gaming. I'll go further into the story in a bit, but I would rather keep all spoilers until the end, so anyone that hasn't played this over 25-year-old game doesn't have it ruined. I'm being facetious if you can't tell. But be warned, and I'll give you a heads up. Instead, I want to move on to the gameplay of Hitman, because it's certainly something. Hitman isn't so much a continuous experience, rather a series of missions that slowly unfolds the narrative beats. And overall, it's quite a simple gameplay loop. You get the mission briefings, giving all the information needed for the mission. This is then followed by the loadout, where you get to pick your poison, complete the mission, and then get paid based on your performance. This is the first time you realise the baby step approach of the first mission is not what this game is all about. And that is what I loved about it. You can take all the information you want from these sections. Want to be a well-informed silent killer? Then do your homework. Want to run and gun your way through the enemies? Then make sure your loadout has you heavily stocked. But don't be surprised when you're back at this briefing screen sooner rather than later. And don't run out of money, because guns ain't free. These briefings are being sent to 47 via his handler Diana Burnwood.
Somebody does.
Someone that would become a mainstay in the series, and sometimes the amount of information here can get a little overwhelming. You get very detailed maps of every area and every floor you'll be operating within, along with detailed target information, complete with short videos which are very helpful visual aids. All this is my way of saying this is a game about styles, and IO gives you the sandbox to pretty much complete the missions in any way you wish, within reason of course. With all this in mind though, one thing you'll have to be okay with is trial and error. Honestly, I can't think of many games with this level of trial and error, and my impression when playing this game was this is how it's supposed to be played. This isn't a game you should go into expecting to nail every mission first time, or any mission to be frank. For context, I played the game on hard difficulty, as I like a challenge. And my goodness, this is a challenge. See, I'm a dyslexic learner. I can do all the reading of the briefings as I like, but the picture of what needs to be done isn't clear to me until I've had a good nose around, dying a few times, and got the feel of what the game wants me to do. Restarts for me was the name of the game, and I was fine with that. As this isn't irritating, I'm not doing this again gameplay. It's more a just one more try sort of thing, and the reason for this is how the game plays. I only touched on the Glacier engine earlier because it's one of those show don't tell situations, but it really is a work of art and integral to what made Hitman fundamentally the game it is. You do have to remember, this is an old engine now, so by today's standards it's nothing special, but we have to put it in the context of the time. Engines like id Tech 2, the engine behind Quake 2, used BSP geometry light maps, but Glacier added real-time shadows and volumetric lighting. Even though, unlike id Tech 3, it didn't have the use of shaders due to id Tech 3 using OpenGL exclusively, Glacier still supported advanced DirectX 7 effects such as cloth and plant deform. Probably the most direct comparison for the Glacier engine is the Dark engine, the framework that powered Hitman's closest contemporary, Thief. Both engines were born from no engine of the time supporting the kind of stealth gameplay required, and while both on the surface level are stealth games, they implement their systems in different ways. I personally categorise these as the Dark engine's sensory stealth versus the situational and social stealth of Glacier. Don't get me wrong, Thief is a fantastic game in its own right. The whole game was propagated around the use of sound and light levels. Every move needs to be thought out, whether that be to extinguish a fire to lower the lights level, or shooting moss arrows to dampen footsteps. This is because Garrett isn't a master fighter, he's a master thief. Whereas 47 is a genetic freak, and can go Rambo mode if you so choose. The strength of the Glacier engine is in the hierarchical 3D pathfinding system, allowing NPCs to use waypoints as navigation while adapting to special changes such as open doors and circumventing obstacles. Thomas Jacobson, one of the main men behind the coding of the engine, also coded in a mechanic called special states. These would define the actions of the NPCs using either patrol, investigate, and attack states. These states interact with the game events, such as suspicious visuals and gunshots. Another arm of this, especially the visual state, is the ability to take and wear clothes from downed NPCs. Different outfits will allow you to access different areas, but the threads have to match the behaviour. Walk too close to an NPC, wear the incorrect disguise, overuse running, or carry the wrong weapon, and the enemy will be alerted to your presence. All this is a little deeper than I usually go into engine coding, but it's these aspects that makes this game, and would go on to define the later titles. Even today with the Glacier 2 engine, it was due to this the levels of Hitman feel like they are alive, and each playthrough will yield different results, with different enemy placements, as for all intents and purposes the NPCs are doing what they want. At the same time, key figures on a level can still be scripted so that events can be completed without targets deciding to wander off. It makes for fantastic immersion when trying to plan a route. Because while restarts can get a little much at times, especially on the longer levels, the missions have an element of unpredictability, making you feel like a real Hitman. Back to the ragdoll physics, and they are a massive part of what makes Hitman stand out. IO used a subsystem called inverse schematics, which allows for real-time collision, enabling smooth blending limbs and ragdolls. Games around the time more commonly use canned animations, which could lead to this very undignified position.
Yeah, that's how they should bury him too.
It's when all these systems work in tandem that you see why all this effort was put into the engine. An instance of this would be taking out targets. Let's take the third mission for example, when needing to acquire the clothing of the target's limo driver to plant a bomb on the car. You have to wait for him to enter the alley to take a piss. An example of a scripted NPC. But then the player has to always be aware of their surroundings. As just because the alley was clear on your last go at this level doesn't mean the pesky NPC doesn't decide to take a stroll through the alley on this playthrough, blowing your cover. Once down, the ragdoll physics come into play, needing to drag the body out of view, and finally, take his clothes and disguise yourself. But don't forget to put that fibre wire away.
Hey, alarm! Alarm!
While this isn't the best mission in the game, it is a perfect example of the key gameplay loop within the levels you will need to do over and over again. But because of the randomness, it's always intense and fun. I mentioned the excellent sound propagation in Thief, and yes, it's superior.
Hello? Show yourself!
But Hitman has some pretty effective sound propagation of its own. The engine featured 3D positional sound with environmental inclusion and reverb. This meant that sounds could bounce off of surfaces and be muffled behind walls. Gunshots will echo down halls and footsteps dampen behind doors. Sound emission is most noticeable when trying to sneak up on a target, probably the most useful kill technique for the true silent assassin. Running will get the attention of the target from quite a distance, even when disguised. Walking will get you a little closer before getting noticed, and the final strike must be made while sneaking. It's an engaging and exciting system, as sneaking is very slow, meaning you have to get close enough while walking before getting heard. And who knows when that crazy NPC will turn around. One area that Thief destroys Hitman though is in the voice acting. Yes, I know, David Bateson, the long-standing voice of 47, is beloved by the franchise fans.
I need to use the bathroom.
But in comparing Garrett to 47, let's not pretend that Stephen Russell doesn't absolutely kill it.
It's a throne room. How pretentious can you get?
To be clear, it's probably a poor comparison. Garrett's voice acting was next level. But 47 is supposed to be understated as a character, and the voice acting in Hitman is very good considering how new VO was at the time. And let's be honest, it's not.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a
Ultimately, all this innovation comes at a price, and the price here can be quite high. For a start, due to the pseudo-random calculations of the AI, mid-level saves are not possible. The NPCs make the engine unable to capture the level state, something that could have helped the repetitiveness of failure greatly. On top of this, Glacier is well known as a historically buggy engine. What I will say though is, in fairness, I played this game around 22 hours while making this video and the bugs weren't massively present. Now this could be because the GOG version is patched, possibly because this was the final revision of the game, but I did get a few bugs. The examples I will give is when I accidentally fired my gun and this guard phase shifted through the mirror, like he came from a parallel universe.
Hello there.
And probably the most annoying bug was this situation, where an acquired gun would float in front of 47. This happened multiple times. Just for completion, I looked at some videos with common bugs. This channel, Theogony, found some interesting ones, and this Russian channel found some very funny ways to bug the NPCs on the mission. Say hello to my little friend. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to laugh at some Eurojank. Moving away from the super interesting mechanics of game engines that everyone loves, it's on to the flashier side of things with the visuals. The graphics here are a mixed bag. Like anything, there are excellent aspects as well as the not so great. While not as good as the stellar lighting system of Thief, Hitman still has its own very capable lighting engine. As you would expect, the social systems required heavy use of processing power, meaning some corners had to be cut for performance. Rather than projecting the light sources, Hitman uses a far more pre-baked lighting system, although I still think it looks good. Not all the lighting is pre-baked though, there is an allowance for real-time lighting on things like gun muzzle flashes, plus set light sources that applies some limited light highlights to the character models when moving. And when mixed with the pre-baked lighting, it creates an impressive aesthetic. Other special effects I personally liked is the blood spatter particle effects with shooting. Oh yeah, satisfying, blood pooling, and the excellent mirror reflections. Look at that bald, magnificent bastard.
What are you, teabagging? Yeah, I'm teabagging.
The star of this show though is the environments. It's clear to see how much work was put into them, and I think that was the correct route to go, as Hitman is all about the sandbox, real-time exploration. Some of the levels are very large. For example, my favourite level is Traditions of the Triad. It's based in a large hotel where 47 has to carry out multiple tasks, and even though it's huge, the level of detail is superb. What impressed me here is the very different areas of the hotel, whether that be the large lobby area, swimming pool, sauna, dentist office, florist, casino, or the hotel rooms you can enter once the master key is acquired. They all look like real places with excellent interior design. Obviously you can't have it all, and IO had to make cutbacks in various areas. The biggest resource saving come from the NPCs and rendered objects having low polygon models. The character models aren't terrible, not massively distinguishable from other games released around the same time. And again, I think this was the correct area to downgrade. An area where the cutbacks weren't so well implemented though is the draw distance. It's hard to know how to criticise the draw distance, because when using modern day mods, it's not an issue. But if we are talking about the game how it originally looked, there was no setting to increase draw distance, and it can range from acceptable to terrible. The best mission to showcase this was the worst in the game, the Jungle King. The most open level in Codename 47 with lots of trees and plenty of that motion reactive foliage. The popping is very distracting here and completely ruins the excellent immersion set up in the rest of the game. The biggest shame with this is, in my opinion, this was by far the worst mission and would have been better left on the cutting room floor. You can't have it all though, and considering Hitman was able to run on quite modest hardware of the time, not modest enough for me apparently, IO made the optimization they felt was necessary. Right, we are finally nearing the end of my manic ramblings, and that means it's time to talk about the story of Hitman Codename 47. So for those of you that want to play this without having it spoiled, it's time to dip, or skip to the timestamp on screen, because spoil we will. Okay, now the squares are gone, it's time for us cool guys to talk about the narrative. We left off the story when talking about the premise where Agent 47 had joined the ICA a year after escaping the strange facility he woke up in. The narrative of Hitman is told over 13 missions, but it's more so split up over 4 sections based around assassinating 4 key targets in 4 locations. Li Hong, the leader of the triad group in Hong Kong called the Red Dragons, Pablo Belisario Ococha, a South American drug lord hiding out in a Colombian compound, Dr. Franz Fuchs, an Austrian chemist planning a biological terrorist attack in Budapest, and finally Arkadij Boris Jagorov, an arms dealer, loan shark, and all-round scummy bloke, taking 47 to Rotterdam, the Netherlands. It's an interesting way to tell the story in a segmented fashion, with each mission progressively increasing the stakes. As an example, starting in Hong Kong, while the all-over mission is to kill Li Hong, Agent 47 has to kill multiple different targets to get anywhere near Hong. and the route taken is to turn the two competing triads against one another, causing unrest and crippling Hong's power. Over the first 4 missions, 47 takes out the Red and Blue Dragons peace negotiators, the Blue Dragons delegates to heighten tensions, and finally assassinates the Chief of Police, whom is in Li Hong's pocket. It's only once Hong's defences are thoroughly diminished in the 4th mission that Agent 47 makes his move. Once taken out, on Hong's body he finds a cryptic note hinting at a secret project. 47 then escapes Hong Kong by speedboat, completing the ICA's assignment. It's also on the 4th mission, the Li Hong assassination, 47 meets with 2 long-standing, reoccurring characters in the series. Lei Ling, a prostitute he saves from the brothel, and the only person that makes our stoic killer blush. And Frank Smith, an American CIA agent, being interrogated in the basement. No idea how they knew he was an American agent. I actually like Frank. He is the comic foil to 47's no-nonsense personality, constantly needing saving by 47. The next target is Pablo Belisario Ococha, and the route to get to him is quite different. Rather than slowly eroding his infrastructure, these 3 missions are about traversing a tough, inhospitable environment. 47 helps the native tribe, the Uwa, by recovering their sacred idol and saving the chief's brother from Okocha's men. In turn, they help 47 find the drug lord's compound. Once infiltrated, Agent 47 takes out this definitely not Scarface reference.
Say hello to my little friend.
And finds another strange letter on his body. Both these letters have been marked with the motto, blood and muscle, and it's becoming clear there is more here than meets the eye. Not that it's going to stop Agent 47 though, because he's an unstoppable force. And next he's going to Budapest. The target in Hungary is Franz Fuchs. He is planning to detonate the chemical bomb at the hotel where the international summit is being held. On a side note, this was my favourite mission, with intricate gameplay and the need to do some real detective work. 47 shoots Fuchs in the shower, and in a worrying turn, yet another letter is found on Fuchs' dressing table, once again signed Blood and Muscle. This is where the slow burn plot begins to unravel, and 47's handler, Diana, tells him some concerning information. All 3 targets hit were former members of the French Legion, at the same time making the meaning of those letters clearer. This doesn't stop Diana sending 47 on another mission to kill Archdiach Boris Jagov. This becomes more insidious once the job is done and the ICA finds out these jobs have been booked by the same customer. This is against the agency's golden rule, to avoid being part of a larger war. But with the client being a powerful and influential figure, the ICA is willing to look the other way, sending 47 on one final mission. This is where the game spills all the tea. The mission is to take out Dr. Odon Kovacs, a Romanian hospital doctor located in a heavily guarded sanitarium in Satu Mare. Upon finding the doctor, shock twist, 47 recognises Kovacs and blurts out the truth.
Hey, I recognize you. You were the one with a needle.
It wasn't me. I was hardly involved in the experiments. It was Professor Ortmeyer who was in charge. Yes, he's the one to blame, not me.
Yes, Dr. Ortmeyer has been behind everything. And for answers, 47 will have to find the good doctor. While searching the sanitarium, Frank Smith is once again in need of rescue. 47 snaps him out of his sedation, and Agent Smith shows 47 the way to the secret underground labs. 47 now comes full circle, returning to whence he came, and Dr. Ortmeyer has been a busy boy. This is a human cloning lab, with the only route to Dr. Ortmeyer being through a group of 47's brothers, clones called Subject 48. While fighting, Dr. Ortmeyer spills the reveal, just like any good bad guy antagonist.
Tailor and perfect humans. Do you have any idea of the potential? No mushy sentiments, no quirky traits, and no betrayal. Do you hear me?
It turns out Dr. Ortmeyer, Li Hong, Pablo Ococha, Franz Fuchs, and Boris Jagarov were comrades who served together in the Foreign Legion in the 1960s. To avoid aging and death, they funded Ortmeyer's radical genetic research. Ortmeyer combined the finest DNA attributes from all these 5 fathers. to engineer the perfect, subservient human being, immune to disease, devoid of conscience, and at a physical peak. 47 was the crowning achievement. However, the other forefathers grew impatient and demanded their own cloned armies. Dr. Ortmeyer, unwilling to share his masterpiece, hired the ICA, using 47 as the weapon to eliminate his former partners so he could keep the research to himself. He intentionally allowed 47 to escape a year prior to test his capabilities in the field. Once at Ortmeyer, he charges and 47 opens fire and puts him down. With Ortmeyer now dead and the cloning facility destroyed, the camera pans away to reveal Ortmeyer's medical insignia in a pool of blood and roll credits. It's a good narrative in a time when the industry was still working out the best storytelling device for gaming and set a great base to build upon for later games. Agent 47 is the real star of the show here. Being a blank slate and a skilled killer with no knowledge of his past, it's a great platform to explore the themes of human identity and ethics. The context here being human cloning was a hot topic when Hitman was released. It was only 4 years earlier the first cloned mammal ever to be created from an adult cell was born in Scotland, and it caused quite a public panic.
These scientists should ask themselves not, can we do this, but should we be doing this at all?
Hitman runs headfirst into this controversy, bringing up some interesting talking points such as what it means to be human, the meaning of life, and nature versus nurture. The final point I wanted to hit on here today is the music in the game, and there is a reason I left it until the end. It wasn't until the ending credits I made a little surprising discovery. There, yeah, Jasper Kidd. Now that name might mean nothing to you, and to be honest, 3 years ago it wouldn't have meant much to me either. But much like when I saw Billy Mitchell's name jump out at me as a QA tester when I made my Fear Effect retrospective, the same thing happened here, because I know who Jasper Kidd is due to this channel. See, I made a retrospective on the adventures of Batman and Robin in 2023, and it was when playing the Mega Drive version of that game, I liked the soundtrack so much that I looked up who composed it. Guess who it was yet? Yep, Jasper. The reason I found this amusing is because I had the same feeling when playing this game, thinking, man, this soundtrack is brilliant, I really need to look into the composer, only to find out Jasper Kidd was once again the culprit. As something of a musician myself, I'm always paying special attention to the music in games, and there are always telltale signs of a good composer. I always look at the attention to detail, adaptability, and pure talent possessed. Game soundtracks are tricky things to compose. You have to make something that's not invasive, not too repetitive, and be able to fit the music within the genre, atmosphere, and hardware framework. Jasper ticks all these boxes, especially adaptability. The Mega Drive is a notoriously hard console to compose music for, and the fact that The Adventures of Batman and Robin has become one of my favourite OSTs means I have a lot of respect for this man's talent. The thing is, Hitman is a different game, needing to hit a very different musical style, and it gets nailed here. As an example of the diversity, you got sleazy dead-end strip bar, dramatic high adrenaline action, and melancholic tunes to sneak to. I'm not going to break down all the music in the game, but what enhanced the great OST is the great sound design. Going back to the game engine one last time, I promise. Glacier used audio streaming to allow live cross-fade music. This allowed certain areas or situations to trigger different tracks fading in, and is a massively underrated part of this game. It's one of those things you don't necessarily notice while playing, but when paying attention, you realise how much it adds, and that's how great sound design should be. This went a little longer than originally planned, and I haven't covered everything here. As we will be going through all the games, I wanted to leave some evergreen series talking points until later episodes. And just for those of you that noticed the bigger mission, yes, we will dissect the awesomeness that is 47's character development later. But overall, what are my closing thoughts on Hitman Codename 47? I think the enjoyment you get from this game will come down to how much modern bias you can curb. I was an adult when this game was released, so I can always appreciate these old games for what they are, because I remember.
Yeah, I remember that.
And of course, anyone that played this back in the day will already be aware of how groundbreaking it was. But if you're a young'un who grew up on the PS2, PS3, or newer gaming hardware, will you still be able to enjoy this? Well, it comes down to how open-minded you are, but I would say you might struggle. The truth of the matter is though, no matter how janky the game engine can perform, how old school the voiceovers are, or how hard the levels can be, this is still a very important game for the stealth genre, just as important as Thief in my opinion, laying down the groundwork for games like Splinter Cell and Assassin's Creed. Plus the fact it bore a series that is stronger than ever, even today, really tells you everything you need to know, and most importantly, I'm suffering from I'm a fag no longer. Anyway, that's the episode, you lot. Let's get out of here. I hope you enjoyed watching me pick up this piece of gaming history, and join me next time when we take a look at 47's cinema-esque redemption arc in Hitman Silent Assassin. No time frame, but it will be high on the list after I finish playing First Light. So, with all that being said, be good, stay safe, and I will see you next time.